Okay, picking back up on Brutal-Fairytales, Stray Dogs, Redemption. Astaroth and Rook quickly headed back to his grandparents' house. As the sun was slowly setting in the horizon, the street lights around them started to spring to life almost in perfect unison. As the people around them were either heading home or heading to the graveyard shift, Astaroth and Rook looked around the streets. They saw how the light uh, they saw how it looked in the fading golden light of the sun. They saw how the sun's light slowly bled into a deep red on the glass around the city, as its last rays of light shined down on Zion. Soon the sun would rest, and the moon and the ring around Zion would light the night. Astaroth just smoked another cigarette as he went down the street. Rook stuck to his brother's side as they headed home for the day. They quickly followed the streets that would lead them to Astaroth's grandparents' house the fastest. The city itself was like a second home to them, in a sense. Ever since they were younger, the two had explored almost every inch of the city. The streets were strange roads to new lands. The alleyways were dark passages to the great unknown. The windows of the houses were small gateways into new worlds. Then one day it all changed for Astaroth. Whereas once the streets were paved in golden stones, he knew that they were dirty and dark. He knew that to truly know a city, one does not talk to the birds, but one talks to the rats, and even the holy city itself was full of rats in his eyes. Astaroth and Rook knew that they could find anything in this city. You just need to know where to look for it. They knew that here you would never know what was waiting for you just around the next corner, not until you made that turn into it, for better or for worse. As they got home, Astroff looked up the stairs to his grandparents' house. He readied himself and the story, uh, and his story, just like he had rehearsed. On his way here, he slowly opened the door and let Rook in before he walked in behind him. Astroff slowly and quietly closed the door, trying not to make a sound. As they slowly looked around the corner into the living room, there they saw Astroff's grandparents and his parents watching the television together. On the couch in front of the television were his parents. On the love seat sitting next to the couch was his grandparents. Astroff looked at Rook, then and put his finger in front of his mouth. They tried to quietly walk past the living room opening without making a sound. "Where do you think you're going, young man?" Victoria asked, as they tried to walk past the opening of the living room. "To our room, ma'am," Astroff quickly answered. He and Rook stopped. They knew that there was no way to get away from them now. "And what's this about you getting into a fight?" Victoria asked. Astroff let out a deep breath, as he knew that they were busted. The city watch must have filled out a report and contacted his parents. That meant there was no point in him wasting a lie right now. They knew he was in a fight, so the story that he had created to explain his bruising It was now completely and utterly shattered. His parents had already gotten onto him several times in the past about getting into needless fights, so either way, he was going to be in trouble. Either his parents or his grandparents were going to give him an earful of it. He knew that it was better to just get this over with right here and now. He knew that he just had to go through this. He knew that he just had to go through this as fast as he could. Once they were done scolding him and punishing him, at least then it would be done and over with. Then he could finally be alone. I lost badly, Astaroth answered quietly, bracing himself for the worst. Me lower the volume. There we go. Come here and let me see, boy, May said as she waved them over to her. Yes, ma'am. Astaroth said as he walked towards the living room. His grandmother was a doctor, after all. She would be able to patch him up better than he could on his own. Astaroth hung his head down, trying not to show the bruises on his face. His grandmother carefully took his head into her hands and turned the bruised side of his face into the light. His grandmother carefully examined his wounds. His grandparents were shocked to see the bruises on his face, a black eye, a busted lip with dried blood. But the worst was yet to come. Astaroth's right eye was completely red. It looked like the eye of a demon. He was in no small amount of discomfort. However, he was sadly far past it and far too used to it. At least the pain instilled a sense that he was still alive, if only for the moment, at least for now. His grandparents or his parents were surely going to kill him for this. He was warned too many times in the past about getting into needless fights. They were surely going to be upset with him to no end. Someone get the med kit and a flashlight now, May ordered as she looked over Astaroth's eye. I got it, Jack quickly stated. He just as quickly shot up and left the room. One of you turn on all the lights now, May ordered. His parents. Right, Victoria said as she started turning on all the lights in the living room. Astaroth watched as his grandfather quickly left the room as his parents looked at his wounds. He would not even look at them right now. He knew that they were going to be mad at him. After a short moment, Astaroth's grandfather returned with the med kit and a flashlight in hand. He put them on the table in front of his wife as he looked at his grandson. Astaroth's grandmother turned on the flashlight. She shined the light into his eyes and examined his damaged eye closely. She looked at the deep gash above his eye. The blood had long since dried up. Still, the eyeball itself seemed like it was intact. Follow the light, May ordered as she slowly moved the flashlight side to side. Astaroth followed the bright light with his eyes until his grandmother clicked it off and sat it back onto the table. Astaroth, close your left eye and tell me how many fingers I'm holding up, May explained. As Astaroth closed his left eye, May held up 3 fingers. 3, Astaroth said. May held up all of her fingers. 5, Astaroth said. May let out a deep sigh of relief. Somehow, he was still able to see out of his eye. Okay, so no permanent damage. Thank God. Unfortunately, I'll have to let some blood out, May said as she opened the med kit and looked over everything inside. Tiber, make yourself useful. Go grab a pack of ice and a glass of water now, May ordered. Tiber went to the kitchen and did as his mother said. As for you, this is going to hurt. But like so many things, it will be over in an instant, May explained, as she pulled out a small bag of latex gloves from inside the kit. She quickly put the gloves on over her hands as Astaroth's father returned, carrying a washcloth tied into a bag and a glass of water in his hands. He gestured them to his mother. Astaroth's grandmother handed him the water. Take these, she said as she pulled out a small bottle of painkillers. She opened the bottle and poured some of the pills onto poured some of the pills out, then handed him 4 of them. Astaroth put the pills into his mouth and quickly washed them down with the water. Once he swallowed the pills, his grandmother gave him a few minutes for them to kick in. She opened a packet up and pulled out the alcohol-filled cotton swab. She quickly cleaned the blood off Astaroth's face. The sting of the alcohol shot through Astaroth's body, making his eye twitch from the sting. May looked at him before she pulled out a small razor blade. She made a small incision along the bruise to let the blood out so it could finally start healing properly. Once she had drained the blood out from the wound, she covered the incision with a band-aid. He was in rough shape, but he would heal up quickly. He just needed a hot bath, a long night's sleep, and he will be good as new in no time at all. She used another alcohol swab to clean the blood off his face, the rest of the blood off his face. Then she applied several small bandages to his wounds. This was going to hurt for a while, but at least he was still alive. Once she was done, she put the washcloth onto his damaged eye. Hold that there, she ordered. Well, little brother, I hope you learned something today, Scotty said, mocking him. Yeah, don't stick up for people getting a pavement facial, Astaroth snapped, enraged at her. No, you did the right thing, Astaroth. We're proud of you, boy, Jack stated, petting Astaroth's shoulder. Astaroth pulled his shoulder away from his grandfather, not wanting to be touched right now. Yes, you saw someone who needed help and you stepped in. That's always the right thing to do, May added, holding his other shoulder. Everybody stop touching me, Astaroth ordered as he pulled himself away from his grandparents. Astaroth thought about what his grandparents said to him. He just nodded his head, knowing that he could never tell them the whole story. Not just today's incident, or what he did last year. Not that they would even believe him. He walked into the kitchen and opened the door to the basement. Then he and his brother walked down the stairs. At the bottom of the stairs was the basement. His grandparents had turned into a room for them some years ago. When he was around 7 years old. They made this room for Astaroth and Rook so that they could have their own room just for them. A heavy old rug lay under a small old bed for Astaroth. In front of the foot of the bed were his bags. Next to his bed was a small nightstand with a lamp on it. Next to that was a large dog bed for Rook. Next to the stairs was what was the washing machine and the dryer. Next to that was a small sink with an old refrigerator next to it. Astaroth wondered just how his grandfather managed to get that down the stairs by himself. He knew that his grandfather was strong, but that was something else entirely. In the corner of the room was an old couch on top of an old heavy rug. Next to that was a small old coffee table. It was a small old coffee table with a radio on it. In front of the couch was an old television that used to be in the living room. In the last corner were several metal boxes stacked on top of each other, labeled food, water purifiers, blankets, winter clothing, oil. Astaroth and Rook knew that these boxes were all for the long winter coming soon. Astaroth took off his trench coat and his hat, then hung them up on the wall hook next to the stairs. He walked over to his bed and fell onto it. He petted Rook before he laid his head down. He closed his eyes for a moment before he stared at the roof above him. After everything they had been through today, they were both completely exhausted. They were both completely physically and mentally drained after all the day's ordeals. At the very least, he was not in trouble for getting into a fight. However, the slight amount of pain he was in did not exactly comfort him. At least the day was almost over with now. "Why are we here, brother?" Rook asked as he reached over towards Rook. Rook leant his head to the side as he put his head under Astaroth's hand and stared at him. "No, not in the basement. I mean, why are we here in this goddamn city? After everything that happened last year, I was so happy to see it behind us. and no matter how much I begged them, Mom and Dad just wouldn't have it. So they brought us back to this goddamn city again. Astaroth said, with a heavy breath. Rook just sat next to Astaroth and barked at him, turning his head side to side. Astaroth turned his head towards Rook. He forced a smile as he scratched Rook's head and nodded his own. I know, Rook. We'll get through this somehow. Let's just hope we don't run into her this year, too. Or everything is going to be snafu to the max, Astaroth stated. Rook leapt his front legs onto the bed and licked Astaroth's face. Hey, get down. This thing can't hold both of us, Rook. I'm done, I promise. Stop it, Astaroth said, pushing Rook off himself. Rook just barked happily as he circled around. Astaroth, it's dinner time, Scotty shouted, jumping on the floor above him. God damn it, I really hate her, Astaroth stated, looking up at the roof. We'll be right up, damn it, Astaroth shouted up as he sat up on his bed. Alright, that's a good place to call it quits for the night. Thank you all so much for coming along. Remember to like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. It really does help my channel grow. I appreciate any comments you might leave in the comments down below. Have a beautiful day.